There is so much to consider in these truly historic deliberations. CNN's team of reporters and producers inside the courthouse are going to bring you constant updates to capture all the drama of the day. Caitlin, we are in the final critical moments of this trial.
Yeah, Jake, we are. And one thing to note about the final moments of this trial that's interesting is once the judge gives the jury these instructions, which he is set to do, he said it'll take about an hour as he explains to them what they are supposed to be considering, what the law is that they're supposed to be considering, which the two parties did not do in their closing arguments yesterday. That is reserved specifically for the judge here, is that as the jury goes into that jury room, Trump and his legal team actually must remain inside the courthouse as the jury is here deliberating what their verdict is going to be. They have to stay here in case they do reach that verdict in short order. Of course, we don't know how long it'll take the jury. I do have CNN's Paula Reed and John Berman here with me. And Paula, obviously, I should note Trump has more family members in tow with him today. Donald Trump Jr. is seated next to Alina Habba in that first row behind his father. He actually just recently, made an appearance here at this case. But it is notable that Trump has to stay inside the courthouse as the jury is going to be in that jury room deliberating. We don't know how long it could take.
Yeah, he's going to hate that. He's made it clear he doesn't like the case, but he also doesn't like the courthouse. He really just does not enjoy being in there. So he's going to probably be like a caged tiger, and that'll be something for his lawyers have to deal with. And it really stinks for anyone, obviously, to be a defendant in a criminal case. It's stressful. You're waiting, but they have no idea how long they'll wait. Even when the jury does come back with a note, it could just be a question. So this is going to be a challenging few days for him.
Well, and I should note the courtroom has just been told that once the judge does begin the jury charge, those jury instructions, no one can leave or enter the room. I mean, that could be challenging for Trump's guests, who often we're seeing going in and out of the room or coming in later, John, than the other ones as witnesses were testifying in this case.
It strikes me that Donald Trump chose not to speak before he entered the courtroom today. He often does. It's a reminder that the next time we hear from Donald J. Trump, he could be a convicted felon. I mean, it's not inconceivable that the next time he speaks before cameras like that, the jury will have gone back into that jury room, begun deliberations, and then come out with a verdict. I mean, this is truly an historic moment here. We are in uncharted territory, and it's really interesting to think about the possible implications of what's going on here and how much is just unknown in that building still.
That's a great point, because Trump has spoken almost every single day, if not every single day, that he has walked into that courtroom. He didn't speak last night, which wasn't totally surprising. It was a very late evening. He had an event to go to, the campaign said. But for him not to speak going into the room, I mean, he certainly is speaking a lot on social media and in comments that he's been making to others about this case. But it does say something that he had nothing to say.
Yeah, or he has so much to say, and his lawyer suggested that he not say it at this very sensitive moment because jurors are about to get their mission statement, the instructions from the judge. We haven't even seen these yet. The lawyers have them, but we don't know what exactly they're going to be told. And the way the judge describes how they need to approach this task, this can really shape the outcome of this case. So this is such a critical moment, and it definitely, I'm sure, is a huge relief to his attorneys that he did not speak heading into this incredibly important day.
Yeah, and we've seen the relationship that this jury has developed with the judge, as he is often very much looking out for them, their schedules, what they have to do, whether or not they're getting exhausted. Yesterday, during that very lengthy closing argument from the prosecution, CNN's Ellie Honig is at the Magic Wall. And Ellie, obviously we have been following this now. We are in the 7th week of this trial, and this is really the do or die moment where we will find out what the jurors themselves, who have been largely expressionless during most of this trial, you can't really read what they are thinking as they are hearing from these attorneys and these witnesses. Now we'll get to find out what exactly, how they've seen all of this evidence and how they've perceived it, and whether or not they determine Donald Trump is guilty or not guilty.
Yeah, Caitlin, in about an hour from now, the jury will begin its deliberations. But what's going to happen between now and then is really important. The judge is going to give the jury their formal legal instructions. And really, the judge's goal here is to give them a view of the law that is fully accurate, but also that a normal human being can understand. So let's walk through some of the key points the judge is about to instruct the jury on. First of all, he's going to start with the indictment, which, of course, charges falsifying business records in the first degree. We know that there are 34 counts in the indictment. The jury is going to have to return a separate verdict on each of them. Now, it's important to understand this crime is unusual. There's sort of 3 steps that the judge is about to outline for the jury. First, falsifying business records, which is essentially what it sounds like. But then, in order to commit some other crime under New York state law, that other crime here, according to the prosecutors, as the judge will lay out, is an effort to influence the election by, quote, unlawful means. And to that end, the prosecution has offered the jury 3 different unlawful means: falsification of other business records and tax fraud, both of which got sort of short shrift during the actual trial and during yesterday's closings. But the big one that prosecutors have really focused on is a violation of federal campaign laws. That's how this becomes a felony. Now, the theory really all flows from the payments to Stormy Daniels, the hush money payments. Of course, we know Michael Cohen first paid Stormy Daniels $130,000 before the 2016 election and then was reimbursed by Donald Trump and the Trump Organization $420,000 after the election. Now, how does that become a crime? Let me show you something the ADA said yesterday to the jury during his closing argument. He said once AMI, and he argued the same thing later for Cohen, once they purchased stories on the candidate's behalf and in coordination with that campaign, those purchases became unlawful campaign contributions. And then the theory is Donald Trump tried to hide those unlawful campaign contributions by making them look like legal fees, by labeling them as retainers on the checks and invoices. So that's the theory of how you get to the crime here. The argument is these were legal fees they tried to make them look like legal fees in order to disguise the fact that they were campaign contributions. A couple other really important points the judge is about to instruct the jury on. First of all, the burden of proof, the all-important burden of proof. In a criminal case, it is beyond a reasonable doubt that's the highest in our entire legal system. The judge will make a point that the prosecution bears that burden of proof. Also, crucial, the judge will tell the jury it is up to you to decide witness credibility based on what the witness said, how they said it, based on the other evidence. And of course, the key battleground here is going to be Michael Cohen. Now, the parties offered very different views of how the jury should interpret Michael Cohen's testimony. Todd Blanche, Donald Trump's lawyer, said, Michael Cohen, he's the human embodiment of reasonable doubt. Michael Cohen is the gloat. He's literally the greatest liar of all time. The DA offered a very different view of Michael Cohen. He said that's not much of a hurdle because in this case, there is literally a mountain of evidence of corroborating testimony that tends to connect the defendant, Donald Trump, to this crime. So witness credibility is a key point. Couple other really important points the judge is about to instruct the jury on. The Fifth Amendment, he will tell the jury no defendant ever has to take the stand. You cannot use the fact that Trump chose not to testify against him in any way under our Constitution. And finally, and importantly, the judge will tell the jury, you must be unanimous. In order to return a verdict, it has to be 12-0 to convict, 12-0 to find not guilty. And so they're going to begin this process, Jake, in just a few minutes of seeing if they can work through the evidence, work through the laws, and reach unanimity and deliver a verdict.
All right, interesting stuff, Elie Honig. Thanks so much. My panel is here. Among our panelists, Karen Friedman-Agnifilo, the former Chief Assistant District Attorney in the Manhattan DA's office. Karen's of counsel for a firm that represents Michael Cohen, but she has no contact with Cohen, does not work in his case, and there are no restrictions on what you can say about this case. Let us dive in. And David Chalian, let me start with you. Give us the 30,000-foot view here. The jury is going to get instructions, and then they are going to go into a jury room. And even if the judge has said that they shouldn't listen to what the defense attorney said yesterday when he said you can't put this man in prison for this, that's already there and has.
I don't know how that leaves there.
Yeah, you can. Well, it was there, I'm sure, to begin with.
Fair.
But it's momentous. It's momentous.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm not sure we've employed the word unprecedented as much as we have for this case, but it is totally deserved. I mean, we've never seen anything like this. And now 12 Manhattanites are going to hold in their hands the decision-making of what will be the outcome of the first ever criminal trial of a former president of the United States. It's just astounding to think about that.
And let me just interject for 1 second just to give some color from inside the room. Right now, the prosecutors are there. Trump walked in down the center aisle, trailed by his attorney, Todd Blanche. Donald Trump Jr. is there next to Alina Habba, Donald Trump's other attorney, in the first row behind Trump. There's no sign of the district attorney, Alvin Bragg. The judge is on the bench. The jury is entering. And Judge Merchan has said, members of the jury, I will now instruct you on the law. So there's a pageantry to it and a weightiness.
There's no doubt about that, Jake. And I think for the former president also, how could there not be a weight on him? I think you see it as he, entered the courtroom today. Obviously, the fist up and the defiance, but the not speaking and understanding this moment is one that he can't they've done all the work they've done in the pre-messaging and conveying to the country that they think this is a totally unfair trial and a total political witch hunt, and they hope that will work for them as a basis from which a large swath of Americans will see whatever the outcome is. But that doesn't take away this personal moment for Donald Trump, who has tried his entire life to avoid this kind of a moment.